Scott Frost is ready for an up and down first year at UCF, but what are their toughest and easiest games of the season?
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Come on in to Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every day. Joining me as he does every single week is my good friend, Andrew Gluco from The Last Word on Sports. Andrew, thank you for joining me today. Today we're talking UCF schedule. We're going to take a look at the schedule and who's the easiest, who will UCF dog walk in 2025, who's their toughest opponent, and what is the most important game for UCF to win on the schedule. All that and more on today's show. Let's start with the easiest opponent. Taking a look at this schedule, it's a fairly tough schedule for Scott Frost in year one, I think. There's some games that UCF should be able to get. Now, we both know they only won 4 games last year. So to exceed that number, you got to win at least 2 of your non-conferences, and you've got to get 3 conference games. They've got to go 3-6 in conference to beat last year's mark. We took a look at the schedule together before we started recording, Andrew. I'm gonna give you the floor here for your easiest game. Who does Scott Frost dog walk here in conference in the Big 12 in 2025?
Yeah, let's preface this is for conference games only at this point, because we know UCF's non-conference schedule is a bit soft, but for non-conference, I have the easiest one being West Virginia, the homecoming game on October 18th. Now, UCF does not have a good history against West Virginia. They're winless against them. Even when they were the better team, they still found ways to not win. But this is a team that's gone through a coaching change very similar to UCF. A retread is coming back. Rich Rodriguez is back in Morgantown. And, much like UCF situation, there's a lot of turnover. This is a largely brand new team that's still trying to figure itself out. And I think that allows UCF to have the best chance to win this. The game's in Orlando. It's homecoming. And I think that might make the players just a little more jazzed and energized, because you're at that about to enter that tail third of the season after that game, because right after there's a bye week, and then you have the November stretch. So this is a really important game for them from that standpoint. But also, because of the situation, I also think it's the easiest one for them to actually go in and win.
Yeah, somebody's got to be homecoming, as they say. And they picked West Virginia. Some would call that disrespect, Andrew. Some would call that disrespect. I'm going to have to agree with you on this one. The retread versus the retread here. Is this the retread higher bowl with Scott Frost versus Rich Rodriguez? Look, I think, honestly, this is a pretty difficult schedule for UCF. So there are not a ton of gimmies on this, especially in conference. West Virginia with the coaching turnover, and you have this one at home. Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you. I think that West Virginia is going to be the easiest game on this schedule. There's not going to be a lot of gimmies for Scott Frost in year one. You got to go out and you've got to find a way, I think, to a 4-5 conference record in year one would be good for him. And so West Virginia is one of those games that you just have to get when you're looking across the schedule. And I don't mean to be disrespectful to any of the other Big 12 schools. So this is not meant to be disrespect to West Virginia. But like I said, somebody's got to be homecoming. Nobody likes it to be. Now, you talked about UCF never losing a space game before we started recording. And it's interesting to me, when you're looking at the schedule and you're thinking, all right, what games can they get? And by this time in the season, if you're UCF, you should know who you are as a football team for this season. This is why I think they, this is going to be the easiest game. I think they're going to have a good handle on who they are as a team at this point in the season. And hopefully Scott Frost has got that passing game going by this time in the season. So, you get this game at home. I think it's going to be, I know they haven't, like you said, they haven't had a good history versus West Virginia, but when you change coaches, I think you change the narrative around this game, Andrew.
Well, I mean, you have to. You got to start somewhere. I mean, when UCF and South Florida were playing, UCF lost their first 4 games against them. And fast forward a handful of years, UCF has the series lead. So, yeah, you got to start somewhere. It takes, one game at a time. They're conference mates, so they're going to have plenty of opportunities to play each other. But you just got to look at the history of it. You have to acknowledge the history of it. But this is a good reset. UCF's hit the reset button. West Virginia's hit the reset button. So there's a lot of question marks of what you're going to see in this game, and I think that actually helps UCF because you don't have as much establishment compared to some of the other teams that they're going to face.
Yeah, absolutely. The easiest game on the schedule, the West Virginia Mountaineers. You've been called to the table. I might go talk to my guy Mountaineer Paul over at Locked On Mountaineers about them being our cream puff. Andrew, somebody's got to play the role. We picked West Virginia unanimously.
Just remind them it's a softest conference game.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the Locked On UCF Council has spoken. West Virginia, you are the weakest link. But who is the strongest link in the chain? That's going to be a more interesting conversation for sure. We'll talk about that right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season big with a return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Visit FanDuel.com to look at odds and all the things sports related. FanDuel is here for all your sports betting needs. Who is the toughest opponent that BYU has on their schedule? I'm going to go ahead and lead on this one, Andrew. For me, it's BYU. Not only because of who the opponent is, but where it is on the schedule. They play the Cougars on the road November 29th to cap their season. The war of attrition starts to take place in November at this point. Injuries are piling up. You're going to not only know what kind of football team you are, but you're going to know how well you prepared and trained in the offseason by the time BYU is in your face there. Look, Kalani Sitake has built a really steady program. And right now, per ESPN's way too early top 25, the BYU Cougars are UCF's highest rated opponent so far at number 10. They're coming in at number 10. For me, it's BYU. I think that they're the class of the Big 12 here at the top. I mean, easily a top 3 Big 12 team coming into the 2025 season. And it's going to be a formidable task for Scott Frost. I don't expect they'll win this game, but I will be looking to see if they can put up a good fight. And we find out what kind of coach that Scott Frost still is in terms of game planning and executing and getting his team to execute a game plan with a team that's clearly better than them.
I don't have BYU on this one.
Okay.
We're going to differ a little bit on this one. I have Texas Tech.
Ooh, I like that pick.
UCF travels to Lubbock, Texas on November 15th. Lubbock is a notoriously tough place to play. And Texas Tech, this is under Joey McGuire. This is a team that has gone for broke this offseason. Massive transfer success, 13 4-stars per 247, blowing out the rest of the conference as far as transfer rankings go, including UCF's own Lee Hunter. They're number 16 in ESPN's way too early top 25. And I think this is a team that is going, championship or bust in the Big 12 this year. Texas Tech is putting a lot of money out there. They're trying to establish themselves as the big boy of the Big 12 because, we're still in flux. You're in year 2 of the new 4, from the Pac-12, and you're in year 3 of the four that came from the group of 5. So there's still a lot of jockeying for position for who's the big dog. We thought at one point it was going to be Oklahoma State. They fell apart. Arizona State came literally out of nowhere, going from worst to first. So Texas Tech, is jumping on this one, investing a lot of money in this, and looking to secure a spot as the destination in the Big 12. So I got them as the number 1 toughest opponent for UCF this year.
Yeah, I like that pick. Now, for reference, since I referenced it, I mentioned BYU is number 10 on ESPN's Way Too Early Top 10. Texas Tech is number 16 on ESPN's Way Too Early Top 25. Kansas State, honorable mention, they come in at 18. So those are the ranked opponents right now projected on UCF's schedule that they'll have to contend with. Now, UCF opens conference play against Kansas State September 27th. That's at Kansas State. That projects to be a tough game as well, too. And to close out the road schedule, because we both picked road games, UCF is at Cincinnati October 12th, at Baylor November 1st, at Texas Tech, as you mentioned, November 15th, and at BYU on November 29th. That is a really, really tough road slate for the Knights. So it'll be interesting to see what they can do. I want to pivot here a little bit. I know we've stated our tough opponents, but I want to ask another question. How many road games do you think is reasonable for Scott Frost to win in this season? I think if they get 2 road games, if they can win 2 on the road, it's a great season for them in year 1.
I agree. That game against Cincinnati should be your best chance to win, but you're going to have to steal one from a team that's in better shape. It's funny because UCF seems to have a habit of opening at Kansas State. It happened a couple years ago. It's happening again. I mean, just the schedule gods just seem to like that matchup. I don't expect UCF to win that. That's a tough one. Baylor's a team on the rise. I don't UCF might be able to steal that one. But I don't expect them to win against Texas Tech. I don't expect them to win against BYU. So you really got Cincinnati and maybe steal one against Baylor.
Yeah, agreed. Cincinnati, that game's right there for the taking. One thing's for sure is I'm looking forward to seeing Scott Frost out-coach a couple of these Big 12 coaches this season. It's going to be fun. I think he's going to put a fun product on the field, even if it's frustrating at times. It should be definitely fun to watch. But we talked easiest games and toughest games, but what's the most important game on the schedule for UCF 2025? We'll talk about that after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Helms. Guys, sometimes intimate moments happen spontaneously, and we always want to be ready so we can perform in the bedroom. Helms provides access to treatments that can help you stay hard and last longer, giving you that boost of confidence so you can be ready when the mood strikes. Your sex life is important, but your schedule is busy. You don't have the time to go to a doctor's office to get treated for ED. Through Hims, you can get a personalized ED treatment without stepping foot outside your door. Guys, ever feel like you need a little boost in the bedroom? It's time you stop worrying about your performance and get Hims so you can feel confident knowing you can get hard and stay hard whenever you're in the mood. Start your free trial online today at hims.com/lockedon. That's hims.com/lockedon for your personalized ED treatment options. hims.com/lockedon. Most important game on the schedule, Andrew. Who is the most important game? Again, I'm going to lead here. Hear me out. I think the most important game on this schedule for UCF could be UNC.
A non-conference game.
A non-conference game. Hear me out. This is a chance for you to test yourself versus a P4 team, right? This is where you start to begin to find out who you are, right? But it's not a conference game. So it's a game, if there's any, that you can afford to lose, right? And then continue on your season. But I think that UNC might serve as a good litmus test for Scott Frost to see what his team is made of, right? Against a Hall of Fame coach. And if you win it, the press is going to be crazy with Scott Frost taking down Bill Belichick. UNC, most important game of 2025. I love this matchup. I love that they scheduled this game. I think that it could serve the team well to play UNC this early, particularly because of who their coach is. So if you're Scott Frost, you log this win, and I think it's really good for your program moving forward.
See, I disagree on that. See, that game would only be important if both teams open undefeated, look really good, and there's no saying that's going to happen. My biggest, most important game is Friday night, November 7th, under the lights against Houston. Space game. This is a game. It's Friday night. It's going to be nationally televised. All eyes are going to be on this game. So other games, you don't know where it's going to fall in TV and where on the schedule. It usually depends on the matchup and what the opponents and all the other stuff. This one's going to be, a primetime game. So, primetime on Fox or something like that. They haven't announced it, but I'm expecting that. It's a space game. UCF goes all out with, bringing out, custom uniforms and, the changing of colors and stuff. And it's always a unique and fun experience. UCF historically does very well in the space game, undefeated, and the games have never been close. I mean, last year they curb stomped Arizona in a game that all you can do is look at it. I remember I was in the press box sitting next to one of the lone guys from Tucson who actually went to the game to cover it. And I just looked at him, after the Hail Mary touchdown to end the first half, I just turned and looked at him and just shrugged and go, space game. Because we were talking about earlier, and I warned him, like, weird things happen whenever UCF plays the space game, and it doesn't bode well for the opponents. And the same thing happened again. So I think this is the most important one, not just because it's a space game, but because of when it is and the guarantee it's going to be on a nationally televised night where there's not going to be a lot of other stuff to watch. So you're going to get eyeballs. And that's where UCF needs to really stand out. North Carolina, sure, that could be a really important game as far as, early season. It could get onto, a good spot somewhere, but there's no real guarantee. This, at least, it's in the conference race. There's more at stake, and it's less gimmicky in the fact of, it's the coach matchup, when you're talking about, Bill Belichick. But I mean, give Willie Fritz some credit, man. This guy is as scrappy comes. And I've been a fan of him, when he was at Tulane, because I love the work that he did reviving that program. So, I mean, you've got a very accomplished coach coming to the bounce house on Friday night. I just think all the pieces put together makes it for a huge, important evening for UCF.
Yeah, I don't disagree about the importance of that game. If you're Scott Frost, you can't be the coach that returns on the white horse and then lose the space game, right? Like, you can't do that.
And you can turn feather for that.
Yeah, so we mentioned earlier in the show, they've never lost the space game, so he cannot lose that one for sure. But yeah, I think that there are a number of intriguing matchups on this schedule for UCF. It should be a fun one to watch this season. It's going to be fun. There's a ton of fun games on the schedule. Scott Frost in year one, all eyes will be on quarterback. Can he revive the passing game? Can he win some games that nobody expects that they're going to win? Certainly, I think it'd be an accomplishment to get this team to a bowl game. Certainly, the floor at UCF, right now should be 6. It should be 6-6. But anything over that, I think maybe will feel like overachieving to a lot of UCF fans. Andrew Gluco from the Last Word on Sports, man, I want to thank you for joining me. Before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you.
Well, one more little nugget, and it's just a fun little notice. You look at the schedule. UCF hosts West Virginia in the homecoming game. Rich Rodriguez. Who do they open up against? Jacksonville State, which is where Rich Rodriguez was last year. So you got Rich Rod's prior employer at the bounce house and his current employer at the bounce house. Just have to be this year. One way or the other, UCF is going to play against Rich Rodriguez. But either way, you can catch me on Twitter /X or Blue Sky at StatBoyDrew. And you can catch my work on The Last Word on College Football, a part of The Last Word on Sports family.
That's it for another great edition of Locked On UCF. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of every day. For your next listen, go check out our friends at Locked On Big 12. You can find Locked On Big 12 on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. You can find us here tomorrow on Locked On UCF.